Hello and welcome to Tell the People, a program about our Catholic faith with news and information in and around the Catholic Diocese of Lafayette. I'm Stephanie Bernard. In today's show, Trista Littell has an interview with Ed Bustani about upcoming events from the Office of Justice and Peace. Father Michael Champine's talk is about Into Your Hands, Father, I Commend My Spirit. In this segment, what it means to be Catholic. And in a conversation with Bishop Michael Gerald, Monsignor Richard Green interviews Bishop Gerald about Holy Week, Part 1. And now, Catholic news on this April 17th weekend. The Lafayette Diocesan Office of Hispanic Ministry would like to extend an invitation to all those in the Spanish-speaking communities to attend the following services during Holy Week. On Thursday, April 21st, the Hispanic community will gather for Holy Thursday Mass of the Lord's Supper beginning at 7 p.m. at the Immaculata Chapel in Lafayette. On Friday, April 22nd, the Immaculata Chapel will be the site for Good Friday services and the Way of the Cross in Spanish beginning at 5 p.m. On Saturday, April 23rd, members of the Hispanic community are encouraged to attend the Easter Vigil Mass, which will be held at 8 p.m. inside the Immaculata Chapel. The Mass will be celebrated in Spanish. A bilingual Easter Vigil Mass will also be hosted by Sacred Heart of Jesus Church in New Iberia. It is scheduled to begin at 8 p.m. For additional information on year-round activities within the Hispanic community, please contact the Office of Hispanic Ministry at 261-5544. The Lafayette Diocesan Office of Marriage and Family Life Ministries will host its annual Mother's Day of Reflection on Wednesday, May 4th from 8:30 a.m. until 2 p.m. inside the Immaculata Center, 1408 Carmel Drive in Lafayette. This year's retreat will be conducted by Father Michael Champine. In addition to his presentation, Father Champine will celebrate a special Mother's Day liturgy for the participants. The cost of this year's Mother's Day of Reflection is $35 per person, which includes a catered lunch and supplies. Attendees must pre-register no later than noon on Monday, April 18th. Due to limited space, registrations will not be accepted at the door. For further details, please call 261-5653. The 11th annual fundraiser, known as Dimes for the Diner, will be held on Wednesday, May 4th. Citizens are encouraged to dine out at their choice of several local restaurants who have agreed to donate 10% of the day's total sales in support of St. Joseph's Diner. St. Joseph's Diner is a part of Lafayette Catholic Service Centers and has been helping to feed the needy in Acadiana since 1983. In 2010, the diner was responsible for serving over 50,000 meals to the poor and homeless in the area. The diner also oversees efforts to provide bread and commodity boxes to low-income seniors and to distribute food baskets to those in need during the Easter, Thanksgiving, and Christmas seasons. These services would be impossible without the support of the community and the generosity of all the local businesses who participate in Dimes for the Diner each year. Coming up next, Trista Littell has an interview with Ed Bustani about upcoming events from the Office of Justice and Peace.
Welcome to Tell the People, the interview segment of Inside the Diocese. And today we have with us Ed Bustani, who is the Director of the Office of Justice and Peace for the Diocese of Lafayette. Good morning, Ed.
Morning, Trista.
How are you today?
I'm doing well. It's great to be here.
Well, it's so good to have you here today. You're going to be talking with us today about the Commission for the Pastoral Care of the Elderly. Tell us what that is, Ed.
Right. The Commission for the Pastoral Care of the Elderly is a group of volunteers that we have as a commission or a subcommittee within the Office of Justice and Peace. And their primary pastoral ministry is ensuring the care of the elderly, folks in nursing homes, shut-ins, homebound individuals, or just the older population within the diocese, to ensure that they are remembered and recognized and receive good pastoral care from the church.
Now, do y'all have any activities coming up in the near future, Ed?
We do. In addition to all the other regular responsibilities of the Commission, probably the key activity each year is the Mass honoring the elderly and those who serve the elderly. We're going to have a Mass which the Bishop celebrates. It happens every year in May. And it's a beautiful Mass, a beautiful liturgy where the Bishop is present and we have beautiful music. And it serves to invite the elderly, if they have children or relatives or friends that can bring them to the Mass. It's a great community Mass in which the elderly are invited to participate with the Bishop, which many of our elderly around the diocese don't have the opportunity to do.
So the purpose is?
Well, the purpose of the Mass is to bring them together as a community and recognize our elderly population, but also, more specifically, the Mass also honors those who contribute and care for the elderly. The Bishop, the Commission receives nominations, and they review the nominations, then make recommendations to the Bishop for certain recognition. In some cases, the Bishop may award his medal as a recognition to those who have cared for the elderly in an extraordinary fashion. Sometimes they receive certificates of recognition. Typically, we have 3 areas of recognition. We have the single elderly volunteer. It's a person who's 65 years or older who has given some extraordinary ministry work to the elderly. And then we also have an adult group organization that will be recognized, and then we have a youth group organization that will be recognized.
Now, do you have any other activities that are going on throughout the diocese at this time?
We do right now, and probably the most other significant activity within our department. The Office of Justice and Peace is responsible for long-term recovery after disasters. And as a result of the tornado and rain, we're very involved with that recovery effort. It's going to be a very long road for the folks there. You know, that happened a few weeks back, and right after that, you know, we had the earthquake and the tsunami in Japan and flooding up north and other activities out west. And so those types of disasters on the local level fall off the radar very quickly. But the folks in Rain are going to have a very long-term recovery effort. It's going to take many months and maybe even a couple of years before the city is back to the way it was before the tornado. And we're involved with several other nonprofit and community organizations as well as the local government in helping to put those folks back in homes and get them back to their way of living before the tornado.
So it's an ecumenical effort?
It is. There are a number of different churches as well as just civic groups that are involved with the recovery effort. And most significantly, the concerns at this point are housing. There's a bit of a housing shortage, that a large number of families that were displaced. And since Rain is a small community without very many residential developments in progress, there's not a lot of places for these folks to go. They're staying with family members, friends, relatives, neighbors, whoever can put them up. But you know, you can only be comfortable in that environment for a short amount of time. So the effort's really focusing on trying to rebuild and replace those folks back into their homes.
So the obstacles that you're facing?
Well, the long-term obstacle, again, is housing. And unfortunately, the tornado struck probably one of the poor areas of town, low-income areas. A lot of the folks whose homes were damaged did not own their dwelling. They were either renters or tenants. And so, since they don't own the property, the control of whether or not the property will be repaired, it's not their decision to make. It's the owners, the homeowners. So it's a process of identifying who the homeowners are, trying to contact those folks to see if they want to have their dwellings, their their properties repaired or demolished, and then moving forward with the actual recovery and the repair of those buildings. For the ones that won't be repaired or replaced, then we have to find homes for those people that are in need.
Gosh, so not only have they been devastated by the tornado itself, they don't really have any control on the outcome. That's
correct, and that is, along with the the physical turmoil, is the emotional distress that a lot of these folks go through. Just the unknowing for days, weeks, and months of, will I have a home, and where will that be, and will my life ever return to any state of normalcy that they had before the tornado.
If anybody wants to help with this endeavor, how do they go about doing that, Ed?
Well, if anyone wants to just assist in general, a coalition has been formed with the City of Rayne among all these different organizations, and they can be contacted by calling 211 or 232-HELP. Or if anyone wants to seek assistance through the diocese, they can call the Office of Justice and Peace. That number is 337-261-5545. And we can let you know, or those folks know, if they want to assist monetarily or on a volunteer basis, how they can best help.
And then you also have information on your website about upcoming events. So if they want to go on your website, how do they reach you?
The diocesan website is www.diolaf, short for Diocese of Lafayette, diolaf.org. Click under Offices, click Justice and Peace. That'll take you to our main web page within the office, and all of the contact information is there.
Well, Ed, it certainly has been a pleasure having you with us here today.
Sounds great.
And I know that you have a lot of good works that are going on in the Office of Justice and Peace, so thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. And folks, stay tuned, because there's more on Tell the People.
Coming up next, Father Michael Champine's talk is about Into Your Hands, Father, I Commend My Spirit. In this segment, what it means to be Catholic.
Good morning. Welcome back to Tell the People, to our special session on what it means to be Catholic. During the course of Lent, we've been reflecting on Jesus' last words from the cross. When we take all four Gospels together and look at what Jesus said as he was hanging on the cross, thinking about you, thinking about me, redeeming the world, he said 7 statements, 7 words as we traditionally call them. And we're now reflecting on the last word of Jesus from the cross. Last, we think chronologically, but in Luke's Gospel, certainly the last one, where he says, Father, into your hands I commend my spirit. We're looking at Luke's Gospel, chapter 23, verse 46. Beginning at verse 44, we read, It was now about noon, and darkness came over the whole land until about 3 in the afternoon, because of an eclipse of the sun. Then the veil of the temple was torn down the middle. Jesus cried out in a loud voice, Father, into your hands I commend my spirit. And when he had said this, he breathed his last. This particular word is very, very close to what we heard last Sunday with consummatum est, or it's consummated, it is finished. Jesus' last words in John's Gospel, John 19, where Jesus said it is finished, and then he gave up his spirit. He expired, expiratus, he breathed out his life into the hands of his Father. Here it's more explicit in Luke's Gospel, where Jesus says, Father, into your hands I commend my spirit. This is how Jesus dies, not in a despair on the cross, which we could get that if we erroneously interpreted, my God, why have you forsaken me, without reading further on in Psalm 22 to see the great trust and hope that is manifest in that psalm. Well, we see that hope and trust manifested very explicitly in this word from the cross, Father, into your hands I commend my spirit. There's a number of things to be reflecting upon here. First is Father. We began the words of Jesus on the cross